So it all began when I was 6 or 7 years old. My parents came home one day with a Lego set that had a stop motion camera and some form of editing software. And that's how I began learning to make movies. I just made these silly little stop motion Lego films. And then when I was in my teens, I somehow stumbled upon Hitchcock's Psycho, was instantly mesmerized by it, and then I began obsessively hunting down for every single making of documentary there was on Hitchcock films. And that's how I kept on learning. Before Window, I made a short film in 2021, which is called Savages, which was screened at an art gallery in New York City as part of the Venezuelan Art Fair, which is something that I'm very lucky and privileged to have participated in. And right before Window, I made a film called Lights Off, which had a very good festival run, particularly in Europe. In its most basic sense, Window is the story of a young man on the verge of throwing himself out of his bedroom window. But to me, at its core, and without giving too much away, the film is about the blurring of reality and fantasy. And it's about finding real emotion through abstraction. And it's, in a way, it's an experiment on my behalf to find that essence, which I believe is where the real power of cinema resides. Well, like I said before, it's Hitchcock. His visual grammar is unrivaled. Whenever I have an issue finding a shot, a composition, or how to block an actor, I always go back to him. He's always been a compass. He's always been sort of my film school. Besides Hitchcock, I would put Fellini and Lynch together, because they're the ones that mastered this idea of finding an emotion through a visual abstraction and sort of connecting with people on that level through visuals alone, which I respect immensely. And I find it very inspiring. Besides them, I love De Palma, I love Dario Argento, I love Orson Welles, and many more. Well, if I was given a good budget, there's a lot of things I would love to do. But right now, if I was given a good budget, I would shoot a feature film, a horror film, in the vein of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The most baseline important thing is to have a clear vision for your film. And by having a clear vision, it's not necessarily to know exactly what you want at all times. It's more so knowing what you don't want. That's the most important thing. If you don't have that, you're going to waste a lot of time finding the shot, finding the composition. You're not going to cast the film right, and that's what's going to kill you. And that's my second point. You have to cast the film right. If you nail the casting of your project, you're going to barely have to give any direction to the actors. They're just going to slip into the character, and the whole thing, it's just going to walk on by itself, which is, in my opinion, probably the greatest pleasure you can derive from being a director. Besides that, I would say that you have to be mindful. If you're also in a producing role, you have to be mindful about the logistics. You have to be real. You have to factor in the worst case scenario at all times. You have to have a plan B, a plan C, a D, and E, so on. And last but not least, and this is almost as important as casting your film right, you have to keep your cast and crew happy. You have to keep the morale high on the set. You have to treat them right. You'll be amazed what people are willing to do if you get them to fall in love with the project and you create a healthy, happy environment for them. After all, they're all in there because they love filmmaking as much as you. The hardest part of making Window, well, we shot the film in Berlin in late January, and it was freezing cold. And to make matters worse, we shot in these apartments that were part of like an abandoned Soviet bloc from East Berlin, essentially. So it's all concrete, and it's even colder inside than it is outside. And the heaters that we rented couldn't fight back the amount, like the temperature that was inside the apartments. So it was very rough on that end. But besides that, everything went super smoothly. It's a feature film. I have around 2 or 3 projects going on right now that are generating some interest, which I'm really happy about, and I'm excited. So it's going to happen inevitably. So that's what's going to be. It's my first feature film.